In Fairfax County, Virginia, there are hundreds of small family cemeteries scattered throughout the county. Some can be found in plain sight, while others are located in various county residents' actual yards. Many more, however, are tucked away in small pockets around the county, standing as a testament to the history and legacies left behind by those individuals and families who helped found and build the flourishing Fairfax County community that we have today. Unfortunately, because of the exponential growth Fairfax County has seen since the 1970s, many of these small historic family cemeteries languish due to neglect, vandalism, and even relocation. Today we find ourselves at the Tyler Devers Family Cemetery located off of Beulah Road in Alexandria, Virginia. It lies adjacent to Innova's current Franconia Springfield Health Complex seen here behind me. Innova recently purchased this property and is planning to build a new 425,000 square foot hospital campus on this site. So we pose the question, what will become of this small cemetery?
I'm Mary Smith, and these are my relatives on my mother's side. Yeah, Uncle Will served in the Confederacy. And after that, he married Aunt Becky. In about 1960, the vandals hit in here pretty bad. And I looked from Lee High School over and could see my father and a bricklayer over here trying to repair some of the damage.
The Marshall family was buried here in Burke near the old train station grounds. The Union Army occupied the train station, and the Confederates attacked several times. John Marshall was the postmaster in Burke, and in later years he helped Hannah Burke, who was married to Silas Burke, one of the town's founders.
Hi there, I'm Glenn Curtis. My grandfather's uncle, John Marshall, and his wife over here, Jane, were buried right here, as you can see. Yeah. And they came in, like I said, a day before, and they had to get special permission from, I think, an historical society to cut some of the trees down that were growing on the thing because there was no sunlight coming in here. And the vandals, or not vandals, but people were buying wine and beer and having big parties back here and really trashed the place up a lot.
When we first moved here, we actually had the house built in 2004, and one of the things that we weren't made aware of is that there's an easement that goes along the side of the cemetery, which people can make access. But in order for someone to gain access to the cemetery itself, they will have to get permission from us because it is part of our plot. One thing I'd share is the challenges of having a cemetery on our property is really the upkeep. We're responsible for the upkeep. If you notice, this fence it's pretty worn, and sometimes we have trees that fall down, and we're responsible for getting that replaced with no compensation to us. So that's been a challenge, and also the upkeep, making sure that it's well maintained to keep the property looking nice.
Hi, I'm Mary Lipsey. I'm one of the directors of a nonprofit group, the Fairfax County Cemetery Preservation Association, and our mission is to protect abandoned or neglected family cemeteries throughout Fairfax County. We have all sorts of obstacles in front of us as we try to do this. For example, a developer in Lincolnia area of Alexandria wanted to bring his homes with their decks right over the fence of a cemetery. In other words, the back of the house would be up against the fence and the deck would go over the cemetery ground. He was denied that opportunity by Fairfax County Park Authority, which owned the land around the cemetery.
This was obviously the highlight of it, and we did a little research on it. There is some stuff in the county records.
We're here at the Sangster Family Cemetery, and the stones are laying flat to the ground here. They look like they had been toppled over or something. This could easily be just bulldozed over. We're right on the grounds of this house. It's a private residence, and it's kind of got a couple trees here. Now over on this side, there's another, like this stone looked like it was going up and down, and the top had been broken off. So I'm not sure. But this is typical of a family cemetery here in Fairfax County.
We are in the Millen Cemetery in Alexandria off of Telegraph Road, and we believe, were the owners of a large farm in this area. It is very difficult to find out exactly who they are because the markers are so old. It's very difficult to read the epitaph on the marker to get names and ages. The problem in these old cemeteries is the upkeep of the markers. You have all sorts of things that can happen. Some markers have a headstone with a base on it and 2 iron pegs that holds up that headstone. When the iron rusts, the headstone falls and can crack, etc. Others just fall with trees or tree roots uprooting them, and they end up face down in the cemetery, which we have some as examples here today. The problem with that is they then can get frozen into the soil, and so you would have to be very careful if you wanted to try and install them again, that you would have to be careful not to pull them up and crack them. Professionals are the ones that I recommend if you want to try and get a cemetery back to close to what it looked like originally, that you hire a professional to do that, because it isn't easy.
One of the benefits of having this on our property is the historical fact, being able to do the research as much as we can on the individuals that are buried back here and how they tie into this community here in Newington. So that's been real interesting to do that research and find out more when it comes to individuals that are buried back here.
The state of Virginia has a code of law that governs cemeteries, even private cemeteries, and it generally is a church or community cemetery that they're talking about, but they do talk about setting up trustees for cemeteries. The problem is, again, deeds need to be established that show where the cemetery is located and who is the owner. And that is another problem we have in determining the actual owners of the cemeteries.
The cemetery is registered in Fairfax, and one of my distant cousins put herself in charge of it, but she doesn't live in this area, so I take care of it.
The Thompson Cemetery on Lee Highway in Fairfax is right in the center of an area dominated by roads and shopping centers, so there was much controversy. Today it remains in its original spot, but cars whiz by constantly are not really aware of this family cemetery. Over in Burke, at the gravesite of Silas Burke, some of the gravestones had broken and others were moved in the cemetery of the founding family. Silas Burke married one of the Coffer girls, Hannah Coffer, in 1824. Silas Burke's gravestone suffered a little wear and tear, but it's currently located on the site where his house is still standing along Burke Lake Road and is now a historical site in Burke. Old Keene Mill Road in Springfield is named after the Keene family, who are buried in a cemetery in a nearby townhouse community, and several of the gravestones are leaning against a tree in that cemetery.
After all of our research and discoveries, we find ourselves back at the Tyler Devers Family Cemetery, still pondering the fate of this small historic resting place. Concerned for its future, we reached out to Inova and asked if they had any plans to preserve this hidden gem. Thankfully, they've taken note of the cemetery's position on the acquired land and have assured us that they will be taking all of the necessary steps required to guarantee this cemetery's preservation for years to come.